In this video, we will have a detailed look at the Tamakam or Tamarkan PoW camp on the bank of the Mae Klaung River immediately south of the so-called bridge over the River Kwai. This was a very large camp and featured in many of the POW's diaries, stories, books, etc. Many of the POWs who worked on the railway would have passed through this camp at some point. One thing to note is that, like many of the camps, Tamarkan evolved over time. It started as a work camp in October 1942 to build the two bridges, but by early 1943 it was primarily a hospital camp to treat the increasing number of sick prisoners. And then the camp grew significantly after the railway was completed and most of the POWs were brought back out of the jungle. And by the end of the war, the camp had already been dismantled and abandoned. This photo shows the camp on November 17, 1943, only a month after the railway was completed. At this time, the Tamarkan camp has already expanded a lot from the small work camp of 1942 to what you see here, mainly a hospital camp, beside the approach track to the wooden bridge about 120 meters downstream from the steel bridge. This photo was taken during one of the earliest recon flights along the railway and captures the bridges and surrounding areas before they were damaged by any of the subsequent bombing attacks, which left the area riddled with bomb craters. You can clearly see the 11 iron spans and the approach timber trestle on the far side of the river, and the timbers of the wooden bridge. The camp commander, Lieutenant Colonel Philip Toucey, wrote a report immediately after the war ended, detailing his experience, which I'll show in a follow-up video. This sketch map was included in that report, but I'm not sure if it was drawn by him personally or someone else. Nevertheless, this map, along with his writings in the report, contain a wealth of detail about the buildings within the camp as it was around the same time as the photo. Let's put the sketch map and the photo side by side so we can easily see which buildings are which. First, let's go back a year to October 1942 to the time when Lieutenant Colonel Toucey first arrived at the site, and it was a much smaller work camp, marked out here. Coming in the camp entrance, we passed the guardhouse on the left side. To the right was the stores, cookhouse, and the deep well with a pump. Next to that was the canteen and kitchen staff hut, and the Japanese cookhouse and headquarters. Across the camp road was a long building divided into the POW headquarters, officers' mess, and a row of medical-related huts. Across the parade square and small stores hut were the 9 long Atap barracks, and behind the barracks against the fence were latrines, wash stations, and disinfestation facilities, which were in reality just racks to hang bedding in the sun. Back behind the Japanese headquarters hut in this area, there was more of the Japanese part of the camp. In May 1943, the bridges were finished and this camp was converted into a hospital camp to care for the huge number of sick cases in the camp and coming back down from the camps farther along the railway. According to Toucey's notes, the barracks were converted into hospital wards as follows. Ward 1 was for light sick and convalescents. Ward 2 was for ulcer and acute surgical cases. 3 was for avitaminosis cases. 4 was the Dutch medical ward. 5 was for skin and small ulcer cases with a scabies section. 6 was for malaria cases. 7 was for chronic dysentery and diarrhea. 8 was for acute dysentery for Dutch patients. And 9 was for acute dysentery for British cases. A mortuary has been built in the north corner of the camp. The Japanese part of the camp was moved across the main road, and the camp was also expanded. We see new huts for the British and Dutch officers and other ranks, latrines, officers' kitchen, and a Batman hut. Across the road was another building divided into a barber, cigarette factory, and medical inspection room. Beside this is a 10th hut for fit cases, and a new eye clinic, then an 11th hut with an unknown purpose, and a large garden area behind it. A canteen and officers' cookhouse mark the corner of the road, with the cookhouse staff just across the road. This building is the Japanese stores, and beside it the storehouse for the pioneers, a specialized bridge and construction unit. Beside that is the Dutch kitchen and another headquarters building. Next to that there is a well and wash house, the Japanese provisions hut, and another guardhouse. We can see these 3 convalescence and fit huts for recuperating cases, and an unidentified building which is not shown on the sketch map. Across the road, but not labeled on the camp sketch, is the Japanese camp. This photo shows the Tamarkan camp a little over a year later on January 2, 1945. I won't point out every single change, just the major changes since the previous photo. A couple of things are immediately obvious. First, the southwest corner of the camp was hit during a November 29, 1944 bombing raid on the bridges. Some of the 126 bombs dropped that day fell inside the camp and killed 19 POWs, injured 68 more, and also destroyed the west end of the first 3 barracks. The Japanese guardhouse was also destroyed. Second, the memorial to all the POWs and Ramusha who died in the construction of the railway has now been built and stands across the road from the camp. And third, there are many more of the long barrack-style huts in the camp now. This camp sketch map shows the Tamarkan camp as it appears in the 1945 photo. Again, let's put the two side by side. A key thing to note is that the hospital and barracks huts have been completely reorganized to accommodate more POWs coming back from the distant camps along the railway. The 9 hospital wards have been converted back into barracks, and the hospital section has been moved into 5 new long atap huts on the east side of the camp. The Japanese headquarters and kitchen buildings have been moved across the road, and the cigarette factory and barber huts have been removed, and a new block of barracks and officers' quarters sits in the center of the camp. There is now a laundry and brick plant on the northern edge of the camp, and the old stores building in the center of the parade square is now labeled as a concert hall, probably like the theaters we saw in some of the other camps. A small cluster of buildings in the southeast corner of the camp is labeled as an infirmary, barracks, another kitchen, and a Japanese soybean mill. This photo was taken another 3 months later on April 3rd, and we can see that the camp is mostly abandoned now. The barracks and hospital huts are gone, and all that's left are some of the administrative buildings. And by June 1945, the camp has been entirely abandoned, shown in these photos taken during the June 24th raid, which put the steel bridge out of action for the rest of the war. Here are 2 more sketch maps of the Tamarkan camp, and I've rotated one to better align with the photos. While they show very little detail of the camp itself, they do show the way to the cemetery. They both show the way twisting and turning generally northwest through a Thai village. This map shows the way in better detail, although they have mixed up the work and hospital ends of the camp. If we look at the aerial photos, we can easily find the way to the cemetery, visible here. And lastly, let's have a look at how these photos fit onto today's landscape. First, let's mark the location of all the buildings. Now, if we make the 1945 layer transparent, we can see where everything was, but now on today's landscape. As you would expect, there is no trace of the camp at all. Almost the entire camp area is now built up with homes and businesses. That's all for this quick look at the Tamarkan PoW camp. I'll end the video with some views of how it looks today from various points around the camp. As always, the mini-map on the right shows the area as it was during the war, and on the left as it is now. The red marker shows where we are standing and which direction we're facing. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.